Hello everyone, I'm John with JP Strategic Investments, and today I'm going to go over my thoughts and analysis on Patriot One Technologies' live webinar that was just held today. There's a lot of things to go over here, including some interesting new developments. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first thing that really jumped out at me was that right off the bat, Peter Evans showed some confident leadership and made some things really clear from the beginning. First of all, he reiterated what he had mentioned before in his shareholder letter that he plans to continue to improve shareholder communication with monthly updates including videos like this, shareholder letters, and of course the usual earnings report and management discussion. He also made it very clear that he wasn't going to make any announcements unless, as he put it, it was a real announcement that provided value to shareholders. This is something that was really big for me because one of my main criticisms of announcements and interviews that Patriot One had done in the past was that all they did was reiterate information that shareholders already knew, and they didn't really provide any new value or information to investors. And speaking of the past, Peter also stated that he doesn't want to look back and he only wants to focus on what's important for the company right now, which is driving revenue growth and building strategic partnerships. I think this should give confidence and clarity to all Patriot One investors. Next, Peter elaborates on something he touched on last month in his shareholder letter, and that is finding customers that are a good fit for Patriot One. He mentions that while large customers like governments and airports could be a very lucrative opportunity for Patriot One, the amount of red tape that is involved in actually moving forward and closing the deal with these customers is enormous. This could mean that Patriot One could be spending valuable time and resources attempting to close deals that might eventually not even happen. For this reason, they have decided to focus on customers that they can move forward with much more efficiently, and in Peter's words, customers with whom they can move to close fast. He also mentions that for the same reasons they have decided to only focus on customers within the US and Canada. Personally, I think this is a great strategy, and while eventually I would love to see Patriot One get contracts with government buildings or airports, I think it's a smart move to focus on other customers for now. Next, Peter addresses some new opportunities and potential sales, and he even mentions that he had just signed a medium-sized customer in the past week. He also mentions that the Patriot One team has completed dozens of site surveys in the last week alone as well. This is really promising because in a shareholder letter he mentioned that many of these site surveys were being delayed by restrictions due to COVID-19, so it's good to see them moving forward with some of these customers. He also touches on the opportunity with ident mods as well as potentially using VRS for parking structure security. Another interesting thing he mentioned while speaking about these new opportunities was that he had recently just spoken with a large distribution company who quote-unquote has the budget to move forward with Patriot One. Now, I don't want to speculate too much on this because as Peter mentioned in the video, many of these customers haven't fully committed yet to working with Patriot One. But it's easy to see how big of an opportunity working with a large distribution company with hundreds of thousands of distribution centers would be for Patriot One. Next, we got to hear Dietmar give us a little information on CMR. He says that Patriot One is still developing the technology and that the initial product wasn't a complete solution to the problem at hand, and that is what drove the development of their other products and AI technologies. Although Dietmar did go on to say that CMR is, quote, not quite ready for prime time, but will be in the future releases of MSG. And while he didn't fully answer the question about FCC approval, I think this gives us most of the necessary information that we need to make educated predictions about the future integration of CMR technology. After that, Peter discussed the business model moving forward, and this was actually one of the questions that I submitted about what the business model would look like and whether or not we should expect more of a focus on direct sales or selling through resellers. Peter says that it would be somewhat of a hybrid model with a mix of direct sales and resellers, and that as the business grows, they will be able to determine whether direct sales or resellers will be the best thing for the business in different situations in different points in the company's growth. Although I think what he says next is the most exciting part of the webinar, and that is he plans to move Patriot One Technologies towards a subscription pricing model. I think this could be huge for the business, and Peter lays out some great reasons for moving in this direction. First of all, it would lower the barrier to entry for new customers. This is because with a subscription pricing model, the upfront costs of the customers would be much lower because the costs would be spread out over time. Second, a subscription model offers steady recurring revenue that is much more predictable, not only for leadership in the company, but also for investors. This means that not only will Patriot One's management be able to get a better vision for the company's future, allowing them to more efficiently allocate resources, but investors will also get a much better picture of the company's future growth, which takes a lot of risk out of owning the stock. Finally, this in turn can create a more stable stock price and oftentimes cause a stock to trade at a higher multiple than other companies in the same industry. A great example of a software as a service company in the security industry that has done this very successfully is CrowdStrike. Now, obviously CrowdStrike is in the cybersecurity space, but if Patriot One is able to employ a similar business model and strategies to CrowdStrike, they could set the company up for huge success in the future. The last thing I want to go over in the webinar is the question about raising capital. Peter actually says that they plan to fund all of their operations with cash flow from their operations. And he also mentions that they are actively cutting all non-strategic spending. Now, obviously they do still have some funding from outside organizations and will probably obtain more COVID relief funding from the Canadian government. That being said though, this funding is not going to cover all of their expenses. So what this tells me is that Peter expects revenue to start coming in fairly soon. In fact, when he was asked directly if the company was able to generate revenue in the short term despite COVID, his answer was yes. This is very promising, and it means that 2021 could be a very exciting year for Patriot One Technologies and their shareholders. Overall, I think the webinar provided some good information to shareholders, and I can say personally that I have more confidence in the company's future now. I hope you found this analysis helpful, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Other than that, see you next time and have a great day.